I dive so deep inside, feel like I died and I'm in hell. Or I'm so high my eyes can't see the ground beneath the clouds. Don't look down. Don't look down. I tried to keep it quiet, silence on my cries for help. As long as I am rising till I'm upside down, I won't look down. This a meteoric rise, keep ignoring all the horror stories like so-and-so got way too famous and ended up killing himself with some pills and a knife. Hey, I am not the one who's gonna self-destruct, got it out the mud. I can way too far to fail or screw it up. I ain't dropping balls, I just blew them up. Hey, I will never let my mental illness be the cause of my downfall. I will never lie to none of my fans. If I did, it would sound wrong. I will never try convincing you dummies this isn't a town hall. Never look down, never look down. Just look around, y'all. Hey, all of my demons are here. All I can feel is fear. All I can do is keep being myself, and that's what I've been doing for 32 years. All of my haters came out, chasing my name for some clout. What are they angry about? They're climbing as high as their ladders can take them and screaming my name, but I don't look down. Hi guys, remember me? I'm the white guy. Everybody wanted to cancel. Nice try. Too sick on my die right. 2 fists full of middle fingers. I got no time for high fives. Too rich for a drive-by. Pay the pilot on my private jet to keep it low and do a flyby. Take 9 knives on a bike ride. Why 9? Cause I heard that a has 9 lives. I'm the one that y'all hated. I'm the one who won the game, got paid and famous. I'm the one who laughed in all their faces and became the greatest since old Slim Shady. I'm the one who don't care. I'm the one who goes where no one goes cause they're scared. I'm the one who don't choke when the boat don't float. My throat gets no air. I can barely breathe all the air I need. Oxygen is very thin at the top. I can rarely sleep. Stars I'm underneath, shining too bright and I can't turn them off. Here's the birds now. Flying too close to the sun, gotta burn. Wow, I've been turning up and I ain't turning down.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Smack Talk Live. I am Coach Lone Wolf. And yeah, another week in sport, and actually a pretty boring week in sport, Lone Wolf.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
We have a world champion in the Tampa Bay Lightning and the NHL back to back. Yeah, they didn't get the sweep.
No, I think they'll take it though.
But they're back-to-back NHL champions. And I think it's funny. There's this big write-up after the Montreal won Game 4. And it was like they had won the Stanley Cup. Everybody's so excited they just didn't get swept. It's like,
yeah, that's great. I mean, it's not a very complimentary thing. I guess it's great that they didn't get swept, but okay.
Yeah, I looked at it. I was like, are you kidding me? You're
Right,
happy
really?
just because you didn't get swept. So you expected to lose the series.
Right. I mean, that's what that's telling me, that's exactly right. That's what it's saying is, yep, we just expected to lose. Oh, okay. Well, congratulations. You did. So,
I mean, that's really the NHL playoffs in a nutshell. And like I said, it's kind of a boring week in sport. This
yeah.
technically is that lull period in sport. The college sports are done. The NBA finals are going on, which we'll dive into there.
Yep.
Luckily, this year we have the Olympics to talk about here. Which there's some issues here coming up. We'll talk about that towards the end of the show. But we're gonna dive into the NBA finals because we're hopefully just getting started. This could be a quick series after watching the first games. I hope not, but I am not. My confidence level right now for Milwaukee is very, very low.
Yeah, I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, if I look at it, my confidence level is a 3.
And it's not because of the roster; it's because of the coaching.
Right.
The poor decisions. You had the lead in the second quarter last night, going into the second quarter last night, and only managed to score 16 points in the second quarter and go into halftime down by 10.
Yeah.
How? You had a 3-point lead going into the second quarter.
Well, but you look at it. We just talked about this offline right beforehand. They're not defending the three very well. But the Bucks have been criticized throughout the playoffs for doing what? Settling for threes when they shouldn't be. Milwaukee's not, and they're a high scoring team, but they're not just a sit back at the perimeter and shoot threes all night long team. That's not
No,
what they were designed to do. But
no,
they
they
get
are.
into those lulls where they do that, and that's coaching. We talked about that in the Nets series. We talked about that in the Hawks series. Talking about it again in this series. Like, this is a problem.
Yeah, and that is goes to the coaching. We talked about this offline also, and I said if the Bucks get swept, Budenholzer's fired.
Yeah.
I would fire him. I don't care if you got the Bucks to the finals. You should have been in the finals the last couple of years. So overall, in the last at least 2 years, you've underperformed. This should be your championship. This should be
Right.
yours this year. If they would have got to the finals last year and lost to the Lakers, I wouldn't have been upset
No, no. And I
because,
think that would have been the expectation. And I think
yeah.
that would have been kind of what would
But
be understood.
but with the way the NBA is laid out this year, this is your year.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's wide open.
So, kudos to the Suns. I mean, they are playing phenomenal basketball. They're shooting the heck out of the three ball, which is why it's like, why wouldn't you push the perimeter?
Mm-hmm.
Make them settle for inside shots. You have
Yeah.
the advantage inside.
Yeah. Well,
So I
and
don't.
Giannis is playing. I mean, so we didn't really touch on that. We didn't know exactly how this was going to play out, but Giannis is playing. So is he? I guess is he 100%? That's maybe another storyline that we could touch on. Is he truly 100%?
I mean, but here's the thing: Giannis, even not 100%, is still better than Portis. Um, you know, it's one of those things. Um, I really don't think that. I mean, could it hinder him? Yes, but at the same time, I don't think it's impacting his game that much. I mean, he's averaging. I don't know if this is. I'm assuming this is for the playoffs. 28.1 points per game. Um,
Okay.
Last night, let's look at the box score. He had 42 points last night.
Yeah.
I think he's fine. I think it's their defense. I mean, in the second quarter, you got outscored by 14 points, 30-16. You
Yeah.
can't score under 20 points in a quarter in the NBA Finals and expect to win.
No, absolutely not. Well, that and you're right. Defensively, I look at the scoring. There's a pretty good balance amongst the starters of the Suns in terms of what they're doing scoring wise and rebounding and assists, everything else. You got two guys who didn't score a lot, who had a double double, and then everybody else scored 23 or more for the starters for the Suns. Whereas the Bucks, you got Giannis going for 42 and no one else with the double
But
double, no one else with even 20 points. So, part of it is that there's some offensive issues, from a standpoint of everybody else on the Bucks aside from Giannis. And then the other issue is defensively, you're just not getting the job done.
well, right. I mean, defensively, you've given up 118 points each game, the
Right.
exact same score.
Yep.
Game one, you turned the ball over. Game two, you didn't defend the 3-point shot. The coach
Well,
has
and this
to.
and this look, the Suns shot 50% from 3 in game 2. That's
Right, but
that's
why
gross.
is
That's
that?
disgusting.
That is all. I watched some of the highlights. There wasn't even a Bucks player around these guys.
Right.
They're all sitting in the paint.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean
don't get it.
that's being out of position like that on defense. Yeah, you can blame a player for a play, but if that's consistently happening, then there's something wrong with how the game plan is going and how the coach is not coaching. I mean, it's
I mean, right
not
here,
drawing things up right, not talking to his players about where they need to be and spotting things on the floor.
points in the paint. The Bucks had 54. The Suns had 28.
Yeah.
But then when you go to and then fast break, the Bucks had 17. The Suns had 7. But when you go to the 3-point shots, the Suns hit 20 3-point shots.
Yeah.
Um, you might
Yeah, there's
want to
something
defend
wrong with
that.
this problem. There's
You
something
might
wrong with
want to
this
defend that.
series.
I don't know. And then they
Yeah.
hit 11 threes in game one. You might want to defend the 3-point shot in game three. Just
Yeah.
saying. Just
And the
saying.
Bucks did outshoot them in the on the 3-point line in game 1, but there's so many other categories that the Suns won in game 1
Right.
that
Oh, oh, here, but
they won
here's
the turnover battle. They had more steals. I mean, there's just a lot of different things.
they had more fast break points. They had more points in the paint.
Right.
I- So it, the coach is Budenholzer needs to get his head out of his ass and make adjustments. Luckily, being down 2-0, it's not great, obviously, but
No,
you were
it's
also on the road
survivable.
both. At least it wasn't like you were at home both games,
Right.
So I'll tell you right now, if they come out and they flip the script here in game 3 and 4 and tie the series 2-2, I'll be like, okay, all right, it's you
It's
know
anyone's series at that
one
point.
series. But
Yeah.
if they lay an egg in game 3 and the Suns go up 3-0, the Bucks are done.
Yeah,
They're
then they're
not
done.
winning 4 in a row against the Suns.
Well, I'll go even further than that. If they win in game 3 but they lose in game 4, then they're absolutely done. I mean,
Oh yeah,
yes, people come back from a 3-1 deficit, but the way this series is going, the Bucks are not coming back from a 3-1 deficit.
no,
Not.
you have to win these next 2 games.
Yeah.
You have to. If you don't, the series is over.
Right.
So, there is one thing, and I didn't watch the clip, but I just read the headlines earlier. Um, Kendrick Perkins, which he has received some of the Beavis comments of the week,
He has, yes.
but I actually agree with him. He is calling the Bucks the dumbest team to ever play in the NBA Finals, and I agree. And it's because of the coach.
Yeah.
They look like the dumbest team because they won't defend the 3-pointer. It's like in the first quarter, they hit 8 3-point shots last night.
Yeah.
Don't you think in that
That
intermission between the first and second quarter, you'd be like, okay, guys, we're going to adjust and to start defending the 3 and pushing our defense out?
I mean, why not? Are you that worried about the Suns' underneath game that you have to not defend the 3? I mean, really? That's what
I
you're concerned about?
That's the thing. It's like, I don't know. I would, with Lopez and Giannis down low playing defense,
right.
I let them drive in the paint.
Yeah, I mean, take your chances. I think you're in better shape than them to handle that type of situation with the
You
way that your roster is set up. And even if
last
guys get
night
in foul trouble, you've got depth.
Last night, you outscored the Suns by almost 30 points in the paint. I
Yeah,
think you can have them be a little closer in that and then take away some 3-pointers. You do that, you win the game.
right.
Hello?
Yeah, because neither one of these games is out of reach by
No.
any stretch of the imagination. You
No.
lose by 10, you lose by 13. So and that's the crappy part here, coach, right? These are both winnable games And that's why, you know, when he says they're the dumbest team, I mean, he may be talking about other things just than the coach, and we've been harping on the coach quite a bit throughout the playoffs, but these are winnable games. And by your mistakes, you're giving them away, basically. And no, kudos to the Suns. I mean, congrats to them. They won the first 2 games, good.
Yep.
But yeah, I look at it and I think, you know, this is a series that the Bucks could easily have won.
Right.
And now
Oh,
and
absolutely.
now they're in a hole. So
They could have easily at least won one of those games, given 1-1 going back to Milwaukee.
right.
But they have a lot of work to do. Was it I think game 3 is Sunday, I believe.
Yes, game 3 is Sunday at 7 o'clock.
So yeah, they have some time hopefully to get their heads on straight, and maybe the coach can not suck ass
Super.
so much on Sunday.
Well,
Uh,
and then they have a lull from Sunday to Wednesday, it looks like, before there's game 4. So, you know, they've got some time here to figure this whole thing out.
so, but we'll see. Like I said, if they don't win the 3 and 4, the series is over.
Yeah.
And then I would be shocked if there wasn't a coaching change. And then you have to go get another superstar. I like Chris Middleton. I like Holiday. They're great pieces. They're great players. They're not the superstar to pair with Giannis to win. You need to go get like a Damian Lillard or somebody like that, you know,
Yeah.
to pair
Yeah, I
with
mean
Giannis.
Middleton played well in the Hawks series, but you know, like
He has not played
11
well the first
points
three
in
games.
41 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, not saying they have to get rid of him, but I mean, more likely he would be included in a trade package.
Right.
Um, I don't know. We'll dive into some free agency stuff after the season, but I don't know what's out there for free agents. They have said they aren't worried if they go over the luxury tax.
Mhm.
Um, so if we'll see how serious the ownership actually is, because if they are serious about winning and they don't do it this year, they need to go into the luxury tax.
I'd like them to make a move if they don't win it this year, not just from a coaching standpoint, but yeah, from a player standpoint. I think bringing in another player that can really complement, um, you know, Giannis would be helpful, and it has to be a guy that is not a nice piece.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily have to be a superstar. I mean, to me, it could be a star. You know, somebody who's just a consistent good player. Um, but a superstar would be preferable. It's just the price might not be right depending on what you're looking at. But if they do that and they say, "Look, we want to go win a championship," then yeah, you bring in somebody who has the capability of being able to put up 30 on a consistent basis.
Well, how about this? And this is just funny stuff. I just quick looked it up. Chris Paul, Kawhi Leonard both have player options at the end of the season.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of funny. Chris Paul wins it in Phoenix, opts out, and comes and signs in Milwaukee.
Yeah,
That'd be fun.
it would be actually.
Now, here's a player I would like them to actually pursue. And he and Giannis are follow each other on social media. I don't know what their actual like what their relationship is like, but Victor Oladipo,
Oh,
he's a free agent.
yeah.
DeMar DeRozan's a free agent. Kyle Lowry's a free agent. There's some players out here that, again, they're not the elite superstar, but they are a step up from what they currently have. Oladipo or DeRozan or Lowry are gonna score you points.
Yeah, those guys are all solid players. I mean, out
Right.
of that list, in my opinion, I'd rather have Oladipo.
Oh yeah.
That would be my preference. I mean, yeah, I remember him from college. You know, he played at Indiana, so yeah, I recall. that he's a really good player from that. And then obviously, in the NBA, he's been a really solid player. Yeah, I would take him, if I had a choice. And he's not a superstar, but he's a dang good player. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
One guy that's getting a lot of attention right now, Spencer Dinwiddie from Brooklyn is a free agent. He's a point guard. Um, he'd be a nice fit also to actually be able to run the offense.
right,
So there are some guys out there I think that they could go and get. Again, they're going to have to go into the luxury tax.
right. Yeah, I think
We
that's
know
probably
that,
going to happen. Yeah,
but we'll get more into that once the season is done.
right.
So we just wait and see, and we'll
Well, just
hopefully
hope for the
Milwaukee
best in Game 3 here.
can come back
Yeah.
and make it a series here. So, moving on, just real quick, a couple of headline stories here just from today. Where did my screen go? Come on. And could have a big impact on the NFL and the AFC. Frank
Frank
Clark,
Clark.
the United
Yeah.
States Chiefs, is facing a felony weapons charge for being arrested in California. Um, he had a possession of an assault weapon. So now everybody, we can sit here. We're not going to break this down and get into it. The reason I bring this up is he's a significant part to the Chiefs defense,
Yeah.
and whether or not he's actually charged, because he's facing the charge or he was
Right.
charged with it. Even if he's not found guilty of it or he pleads it down, the NFL can still suspend him because it's a felony conviction or a felony charge. So that's why I bring it up. Not that he's guilty of it or whatnot. He's just charged with it. I'm not going to get into all the different hubbub of whether, circumstances behind it, but that could have a big impact on the Chiefs moving forward. Because again, everybody's like, oh, their window is huge because they have Patrick Mahomes and blah blah blah. No, their window is actually going to decrease fast because they have a lot of really talented players that want contracts, and they don't
Yeah, and we
have.
we talked about that during free agency. That's an issue for them.
Yep,
You can lock down your quarterback and you can be competitive, but winning a Super Bowl isn't just a foregone conclusion if the rest of your team isn't up to snuff.
right. So, um, so yeah, really, that's the only thing in the NFL. No real news on any other front. I'm not going to mention the story everybody wants to hear about.
The
Um,
spelling bee champion?
yeah, that's right. No, we're not talking about spelling champion.
Okay, all right.
So, um, but I wanted to talk about the Major League Baseball here. We haven't really talked about like actual playing, like how
Yeah,
teams are
yeah.
doing in a while.
We have talked
Um,
about a lot of other things around
yes,
baseball outside of that.
yes.
So
Um, but we haven't talked about where we're sort of at. So we're getting close to the All Star game, the All Star break,
yep,
and there are some shocking, not shocking, but interesting storylines. Over in the American League, you have Boston and Tampa Bay up at the top of the AL East, but
right.
you have the New York Yankees sitting in fourth, only 2 games above 500.
Yeah.
That's interesting
I
because
think so too. Yeah.
they were predicted to be supposedly one of the best teams in baseball,
Right.
and they're not. So I think that's quite interesting.
Well, and I mean they're not horrible in what they've given up as far as their runs, but There's certainly, when you're on the flip side of that equation and you haven't scored as many runs as you've given up, you usually don't end up with a good record. But if you look at the other teams that are in that division, they've been playing a lot better baseball than the Yankees have.
Mm-hmm.
And the Red Sox and the Rays, that's not totally a surprise. I mean, the Rays,
No.
we expected them to be good. So, but yeah, I mean, every year the problem is with the Yankees. Every year you expect them to be good because they spend so much money on their roster, they have so many stars, and then year in and year out, and then it's like, well, it's a surprise when they're not playing as well or doing as well as they should.
Right. Right. So then you move to the AL Central, and this is the I did not expect the Chicago White Sox to be sitting in first place by 7 games.
Oh no, not at all.
I thought the Twins were going to be a lot better than they are. The Twins are bad.
They're pretty abysmal. Yeah, they're 15 games on the flip side of 500.
So, but I thought
14
Cleveland would
games
be
cheaper.
better than where they're at. They're sitting 2 games above 500. But here's
Right.
the thing: you have basically that Major League Baseball did not listen. They
No.
went back to roughly the same
Setup
uh,
they had before. Yeah.
setup they had before. The 2 wild card teams, which is stupid, but hey, what do we know?
Yep.
So you already have, you're looking at in the AL, you have Detroit, Minnesota, Kansas City, Texas, Baltimore. They're already cashed it in because they're the Tigers are the closest. They're 9.5 games out of the wild card.
Right.
They're done. You're not making up 9.5 games.
Well, and that's the problem is, all that interest that was generated over that really short COVID season that baseball had was, to me, a lot of it because it was a shorter season. There was a lot on the line. And then you get to the end, and how many teams had a chance? And every time you look at it, it's like, okay, all of these different teams have this mathematical possibility of getting a wild card or getting in the postseason in some
Hmm.
way. Well, that's amazing for your sport.
Right.
But yeah, like you said, now if I'm an Orioles fan, well, I'm done. Like,
Well,
I'm
I
not even
mean,
worried about it
even
anymore.
if it was the other format, you look at a couple of these teams are probably out of it.
Yeah, they're done.
But
Yeah,
like, even you go above them a little bit, and you
right.
look at like the Yankees, the Angels, and the Indians. They're all at 44 and 42, 4.5
Yep,
back.
yep.
That's a lot to make up.
It is. And teams can catch fire in the second half
You
of the
can, you
season. That's
can,
possible.
but you're now sitting there like, oh, if we don't get going soon, cash her
Yeah,
in. Because here's the
yeah,
thing: teams that are in that area, like the Indians and the Angels and the Yankees, if this was last year's format, you'd look at them possibly making a trade for a player. Now
right.
they might be looking at it and be like, we're going to get rid of guys and just cash this in and be
And
done.
then worry about next year.
Right.
Yeah. And
Um,
that's crappy as a fan because you think about it, coach, then you're like, okay, well, the second half of the season for my team is done.
right.
And so I'm already thinking about next year. Great,
Right.
thanks.
Now you go to the National League and well, we'll talk about the wild card scenario in the National League before we get to standings. You have the Reds are the closest to the wild card spot at 5.5 back.
Yeah,
And then you have the Cubs at 7.5,
yeah.
Atlanta at 7.5, Philadelphia at 7.5, Washington at 8, St. Louis is 8.5. Those 4.5 is hard to make up. Imagine those teams.
Right, right. Yeah. Well, because the West is just loaded with teams that are good.
Well, yeah, and again, we'll talk about this when we get to the standings, but
Right.
it's just those teams now are going to be more in selling mode than buying mode,
Yep. Yep. Right.
and it's not
Exactly.
fair to their fans.
No.
So,
No, not at
Major
all.
League
Yeah.
Baseball. screwed the pooch on that one.
Yeah.
Um, but anyways, I'm into bashing people today.
I mean, we're just on a roll right now. But you know what? This is the thing is we have done this to baseball time and again. We thought that they wouldn't have a season. They did end up having a season. And then they did a bunch of stuff that we thought would be cool. And then they promptly ditched a lot of that stuff because, you know, they have to go back to what they were doing before, which is stupid. And so now they're in this situation where, yeah, where's the interest? You
Right.
know? And that's unfortunate.
And then, getting back to standings, you go to the American League West. Really no surprises here. Well, maybe the Mariners at 42, 46 and 42, sitting in third.
Yeah.
Um,
A little bit, yeah.
but not a whole lot. But you have the Astros and Athletics at the top there, and that's who we
Right.
expected to be there. Going to the National League, not surprising like where the teams are in the NL East, but the records are still surprising. So I'm not surprised the Mets are in first. I'm not surprised the Braves are in second. I'm not
Right.
surprised Philadelphia, how the
Yeah, where
standings
everybody
are.
falls. Yeah. Yeah.
But it's the records. The Mets are only 45 and 38.
Right.
The
Everybody's
Braves
just,
are under
kind of
500.
mediocre.
The Braves are under 500. Philadelphia's under 500. Washington's under 500. The Marlins, that's not a shock.
Yeah.
Um, but just the mediocrity in that division. Now, that's the only hope for some of these teams because you're not getting a second team out of the NL East into the playoffs
Yeah, I mean,
unless somebody catches fire.
it's kind of NFC East-ish,
Yeah,
from
yeah,
last year. It's the same type of thing. It's like, okay, the best team that you're going to get out of this whole mess isn't going to go anywhere in the postseason. It's kind of been a fall for the Braves from last season, obviously. Um, but this division last year, remember, was really competitive. It
right.
still is, but they were better competitive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Um, Going to the NL Central, this is a surprise. I did not
I
think the
agree.
Brewers were going to be this good.
Right. I agree. I was going to say
Um,
that same thing.
they're losing right now to the Reds, who are in second. You know, but still having 53 wins already. Um,
Well, and they're good. Like their records are almost identical at home and away. So to
right.
me, that tells me there's no deficiency when you go on the road. Um, that's one positive thing, that they can pick out from the Brewers. I'm a little surprised too that they're as good as they have been over the
I
past
thought they
few
would
years.
be in that wild card discussion around that 500 mark.
Right.
But I didn't think they'd be doing this. They are linked to some bigger names at the trade deadline. They could use some more offense.
I think
Uh,
so too. Yeah. Because their
but
differential is 51 runs, and you
yeah,
look at some of the teams that are at the top, their differential is more than that, and you
right,
want to see them compete with the Dodgers and the Giants and some of these other teams that are out there, um, that are you might see in the postseason.
right. The surprise there is St. Louis. I thought they'd be better than that. But
Yeah, and they're not horrible, but yeah, I agree. I thought they'd be a little bit better.
and then you go to probably the best division in baseball, the NL West. You have three teams with 50 wins. I
Yeah,
mean,
which is kind of insane. Yeah,
yeah, that unless somebody gets cold there, you are going to um, probably get all three of those teams into the playoffs. So,
yeah. Yeah, I
and
would
that,
say so. Out of those teams, what bugs me about the Padres, and I just talked about this with the Brewers, is they're 20 and 21 away. So unless you figure that out over the course of the season, I mean, if you're losing more games than you're winning on the road, that's going to be a problem, particularly in the postseason,
Right.
when it comes down to it. So, although they've been amazing at home,
Yeah.
so I guess just make sure that you're the team that's at home in the World Series if you get there,
Right. Right.
and then you're fine, I guess. But
But yeah, so that's baseball in a nutshell. You get heading into the All-Star break. We'll again the thing problem with baseball is it's such a long season.
right,
The Brewers could go cold. The Brewers could lose 10 in a row, and all of a sudden
right.
they're in a dogfight for the division. And
Well, and that's why we talk about the storylines and we talk about the standings right now.
right,
But again, yeah, there's so many games to go that it's not irrelevant, but it doesn't really make a huge impact because yeah, any of these teams could end up getting hot. That doesn't really add a lot of flavor to it. It's kind of like, okay, your team right now, like one of these teams that's on the cusp, they could go on a 10-game win streak and put themselves in the mix for that wild card or the division. And
right,
then you get all excited, and then they go on a 10-game losing streak, and
right.
then it's done.
Exactly,
And
exactly. And that's the thing.
so
Is that you just don't know, um, you know, with baseball, and that's the problem. It's like you don't get a lot of interest till about the last month of the season, and
right,
then once the playoffs start, nobody cares anymore until the World Series. So,
yeah,
unlike the other leagues where you have some intrigue throughout the entire course of the season
right.
at some level. Um,
Yeah, I mean, even with basketball and hockey, which have longer seasons, there's still some things there that I think you get more into it, and especially when it starts to even matter more towards the end of the season. But their end of the season comes quicker. You have the All Star game, which in and of itself usually has some drama involved. So, especially in the NBA, man, the drama around the All Star game
yeah,
every year. So there's always some other storyline. But yeah, baseball just seems to go on and on for so long that it really kind of puts a damper on that excitement level.
right.
So
All right, so we are to the Olympics, which are coming up here. Probably in what about a couple weeks?
yeah, I
Um,
was gonna say I think it's the 22nd to the 23rd. The 23rd is when they start.
so the last show we talked about um, the transgender athletes and the weightlifting competition and whether they should be allowed in the Olympic Games and how some countries are allowing it, some aren't, this and that. Well, now you have um, the controversy. The first one is with Shakari Richardson
Yeah,
being omitted from the Olympics because of a positive marijuana test. Um, and you have people coming out saying they don't understand it. They don't see what the big deal is. Personally, I could care less. You want what it's your choice. It's not a steroid. It's not going to give you a competitive advantage. Um, but I understand why they did it because currently that is the rule
it is.
and it is an illegal substance federally. It's an illegal substance. So, people are gonna be like, no, it's most states have approved it for medical purposes, but
Right,
overall, like in Nevada, if you go and you have marijuana in Nevada, you are not going to get in trouble for it.
right.
But if you take that and you bring it to Wisconsin and you get caught with it, you're going to get arrested for it because it's illegal in the state of Wisconsin to have as a recreational drug. Um, Again, that doesn't. This is not expressing our personal opinions on that. That's just
No,
stating the legal facts of the possession
right,
of
right. The
marijuana and the use.
situation. That's just what it is. Yeah, and this. while it's stinks and it's horrible for her personally and for the U.S. Olympic team, those are the rules that are in play right now with the World Anti-Doping Agency. So if that's the rule, then that's it. I mean, you can petition, you can ask, but if all of a sudden there's an exception made for one person, um, then I don't know what you can do. Like, even if she lived in a state where it was legal, let's just say she lived in Nevada or she lives in Colorado or wherever, um, and it's legal in Colorado, let's say, and she's using it, but you're an Olympic athlete and you go get tested and you test for it, well, you're going to be kicked out and you won't be allowed to compete because that's what the rule is for the world organization that governs it. So you just
Right.
have to be aware of it. I mean, I feel bad for her, but at the same time, you can't just overturn the rule. You can take a look at it, later for other competitions, but that's just the way it is now.
Right, and even the anti-doping agency, the U.S. anti-doping agency, has come out and they have said we don't have the authority to change the rules. This has to
Right.
be that we are given these rules by the government, and we have to follow them, and they have to change them because you have politicians coming out saying, this is unfair, and
Right.
like you said, it stinks for her,
It
but
does. Yeah.
you know the rules. You know the rules when you do this. When you take that, when you sit there and put that substance in your body, you know you're going to get tested. You know the rules.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, this brings up a bigger issue where I just think that as a society, we have gotten to that point where, oh, there's always a reason why I can break the rules, and I should just be allowed to do what I want.
Yeah, I mean, she said she used it to cope with the loss of her mother. That was what I read in the article.
Wh-
Um,
Which
which,
could be which could be true
yeah,
and can be totally understandable, but that's not a medical reason.
no, well, it's not as far as we know, unless she's like clinically depressed or something. But she didn't say that, and even then, the bottom line is this, I think, and this is, I guess, what bugs me about just society in general, which I know it's a little away from sport, but there's no accountability. Like, you just need to come out and say, I did it and I'm accountable for it and it was my mistake and here's why. And people can get upset about the rule. Well, then you examine it for the future, but don't expect it to be overturned right now in this instance, because that's
Right,
the rule. You knew it was the rule going in, and now you're stuck with it.
right, exactly, and that's the thing. I just don't get why. I understand that, it stinks, but you broke a rule.
Mm-hmm.
You broke a rule. There's a penalty for breaking the rule, and that's unfortunately the way it needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now, this next story doesn't seem like she's really going to miss too much except for being able to compete. But because of and I really didn't read this too much, but I guess Japan, I don't know if it's Japan or the city of Tokyo itself,
Okay.
but they have declared a state of emergency for the coronavirus, and no
Yeah.
fans are going to be allowed at the Olympics.
Yes. Yep.
So why
Yeah,
have
and I don't
games?
know which
Why
one
why have
states
games
specifically
then?
done that, but
Why have the games?
yeah. Yeah, it just says Tokyo, so I don't know if it's Tokyo or I think it might just be Tokyo.
I don't understand this, and it's just happening now, and
Right. Right before the games
and it
come out.
and it lasts through August 22nd.
Right.
So the span of the Olympic Games.
Right.
What's the point of having the Olympics if you are not going to have spectators?
Yeah. And I understand their concern as far as COVID being a concern, but I just feel like if you had set this up and you guys, they had a year
Yeah,
from the last time that they were supposed to have the Olympics until now. So you can't tell me that they haven't had planning sessions around being able to have fans there at all. So I mean, as it stands right now, you can have, I'm assuming, team coaches and whatever else, right, for your country,
right.
and then the athletes themselves. But you can't have anyone there at all in attendance. So no parents, no nothing. Because according to this, there's nothing, right? I,
Right.
I mean, even in a limited capacity, you can't tell me that you can tell everybody to wear a mask and have them come in and do tests and be able to at least allow families of athletes to go.
Well, that's the thing. It's like you've had well over a year to prepare this because
Mm-hmm.
COVID started January of 2020. The Olympics weren't supposed to be till July of 2020. So you had 6 months there, plus now an extra year. You're telling me you're so inept that you can't get a plan in place to allow limited capacity at your venues
Right,
to monitor this stuff?
right.
I mean, you're almost as
Yeah.
dumb as Budenhauser. I,
I
I
get,
mean, seriously.
there's a lot more people involved than just one single game or something like that in this situation. But you've had that whole time to plan and even expect that there might be something like this that would happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you should have had contingency plans for this.
Right.
Like I will not watch these games. I won't watch them. I will
Yeah.
go on ESPN. I'll look to see who wins. I won't watch them because I couldn't watch any of the sporting stuff during COVID with no fans either because it just wasn't the same. It wasn't the same.
Yeah. Yeah, I still watch certain things, but I guess my viewership was lower than what it was now, in comparison. And I think in a limited capacity, it can make sense and it can still work. So that's why I don't know why they can't allow some type of limited, even a limited capacity. That I don't understand. Maybe I'm not seeing it. Maybe there's just a widespread COVID outbreak in Tokyo that is completely horrible. But I don't feel like there is. I guess from reading some of these articles, it doesn't seem that way. Um, I don't know. Yeah, and maybe require people to get the vaccine, but that's another issue all in and of itself.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I was gonna say, like now we're getting it.
yeah,
Getting
yeah.
I don't think we want to get into that.
No, 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 no. But it makes a difference. So I mean, so for you here, this is a good thing to talk about. If no fans, you won't watch the Olympics.
Yeah, I won't
Yeah,
watch it.
yeah. So I
Well,
got I get the feeling that there's going to be that reaction from other people as well, um, and that's going to contribute to this Olympics being probably a poorly viewed Olympics. And you have top athletes that might not be there too.
right.
So
And then and there's some I don't know if it's really too much with the other stuff going on. I it's neat stuff. It's always neat to watch certain events, but I can't get excited knowing that like the pool, watching the swimming watching the swimming is really fun because you can hear the fans there cheering,
Yeah.
and now you're not going to hear it
Piping some white noise in the background or something.
because part of it is you can't really tell who's getting close and whatnot watching it. Unless it's like the person's winning by like 10, 15 meters, you don't know how close it is. Some of those are really
Right.
close. Um, and it won't be the same. Like gymnastics. You're telling me that's going to be the same watching it with complete silence?
Well, and with gymnastics in particular, and this is why, I mean, my daughter's going to want to watch this, but if there's no fans, well, there's no family. That's usually the biggest thing you have as mom or dad or whoever was watching gymnastics. And if they're not even allowed to be there at all, I think that detracts from the sport. I mean, if there's no other fans there, I can live with that as long as the family members were there. But with this, they're not even allowed to be there. So yeah, that to me that detracts from the experience.
So,
Absolutely.
so yeah, I don't know. I just, but now, but then Tokyo is also having the Paralympics right after the Olympics. They're going to allow to could have some fans there because the state of emergency is going to be lifted on August 22nd.
Right.
I, how do you know that the state of emergency is going to be done? What is the state of emergency? You know,
I guess because of, yeah, I mean, and that's, we could get into how many cases they've got and what's going on and all these sorts of things, but I just I just think, generally speaking, when you look at it, I understand why they take the precautions that they do, but I think a limited capacity would be better than no capacity. And people would have a lot easier time understanding that. And I think health wise, you could still contain what you needed to contain if you had a limited capacity. So, yeah.
let's see. Yeah, and I mean they're still making, and I mean again I don't know what their protocols and what's going on there with this. They are still having people self isolate coming into the country.
Hmm.
The IOC president had to self isolate for 3 days at his hotel. So they're making every single athlete self isolate for three
Yeah.
days.
I would probably, yeah.
Uh, this is where the credibility of the IOC takes a hit because you delayed this a year
Well,
to
and I
get
think part
this.
of it is the IOC and part of it is Japan itself. Japan and the Olympic ministry that is overseeing the Olympics, and so it's kind of like a combination of that. But the IOC has long taken hits about a lot of different issues. This is just one in a long line of things, I think, too.
So it's gonna be interesting. But I mean, right now, and they have the COVID numbers in here. They have about 110,000 cases, or 810,000 cases. I'm assuming that's during the entire spread of the pandemic, and then just about 15,000 deaths.
Yeah,
Um, so I mean,
yeah, and they've got more cases. I see that, but when I'm reading this article, the problem that they're talking about is they need bars, restaurants, and karaoke parlors serving alcohol to close because they're worried about people going and drinking and partying and what have you. Which, look, if you go to the Olympics and you go to the venue and you watch the games and whatever else, and you're worried about people going out for drinks afterwards, well, if all those places are closed, they can't go out for drinks. so
Right.
they could go watch the Olympics and then go home
Mm-hmm.
because those places are closed. So what's the problem if all of them are shut down during that time? That's I guess that's I don't get it. You can't go out if the place is closed. So
So yeah, so it will be interesting. It's gonna be an interesting Olympic Games, to say the least. I it's gonna be interesting. Um,
yeah. Well, and they don't want to cancel themselves because they're going to lose out on a ton of revenue. It's already
right,
bad enough, I'm sure, with what happened since last year. But honestly, I'm going to be interested to see how this plays out in the long run. If they don't have fans, but yet they still have a lot of issues with COVID, then that just kind of tells me that their planning and infrastructure wasn't very well set up to begin with.
right,
And granted, I will give them this. You got players, or excuse me, athletes coming from all over the world to compete. So there's a lot to cover from that standpoint. I get it. But you have been planning this, let's just say now for 5 years, right? Because I think, they announced the Olympics of the city that gets it at the previous Olympics. You probably knew about it even before that, but I'll just give them 5 years of planning time.
right.
That's a lot, you know. And then you throw COVID in there, and I get it, but now you had an extra year to plan on top of it. So,
Right.
yeah,
So, but again, we will see. We will see. We will see.
yes,
Real quick, the last thing I wanted to mention, and we have to bring it up. Our favorite football league has announced its third relaunch. The XFL has announced it's going to relaunch in 2023. They are trying to collaborate with the CFL to do some type of, I guess, inter-league play. I
yeah.
don't know. So we will have an XFL 3.0. Uh,
Yep. I mean, it just, this, can this be successful? I don't know. Well, we
I,
knew, and the Rock bottom out, right? So I mean,
right.
yeah,
It is owned by the Dwayne the Rock Johnson. He owns the league. Um, but I mean, the last season only lasted 5 weeks, and it went bankrupt.
yeah.
Uh,
That's pretty pathetic.
you know, you have to have a huge financial bank account to run a league.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to get a ton of corporate sponsors right away. You're not going to get fans coming out right away. Um, you need to run, like, they try to do it in the spring. It's not going to work because other people are thinking of other things in the spring. You're thinking NFL draft. You're thinking NBA. You're thinking Major League Baseball. This time period, June and July, like the end of May, June, July, that is when you want to have, if you want to run a successful second league,
Right. I agree. Yeah.
you do it in the summer.
Right. There's a lull in sports that you
Right.
could pick up on and hit.
Like right now,
When they're
if the XFL is playing right now, we'd be talking probably a ton about it
right. I
because
think so, and I mean because you look at the NFL storylines right now. There's not a whole lot to talk about.
right,
It really isn't. And yes, you have the NBA finals, but basketball wise, you can talk about that. Yeah, you can delve into the nitty gritty if you're a fanatic. But yeah, we could talk a lot of XFL. I'm hoping these talks between them and the CFL kind of stopped. They're going to have to do something different than the last two iterations of the XFL to make this thing work. Because if they don't, it's just going to die the same way that the last two died.
And
Vince
they can't.
McMahon tried to do something where he was like, it's pro wrestling but football.
Well, and what they
Like
what they need to stop doing is bringing in NFL retreads. You bring in washed up NFL players. You bring washed up bring in washed up NFL coaches to think you're going to get fans there. No, what you need to do is you need to bring in people that haven't had that opportunity to take it to the next level yet,
right.
to try to get them to that next level, because then you are now, if you're a college player, you don't get
Mm-hmm.
drafted. Okay, and you don't get, and you get cut for, during OTAs. You can go play then in the XFL and hopefully catch on come training camp with an NFL team. Or if you're a
Right.
coach and you're trying to rise to the NFL level, you can go coach in the XFL, prove that you have what it takes to be at that next level, and use the XFL as a stepping stone. Instead of being a competitor, be a sub league for the NFL teams.
Yeah.
I mean,
Because
literally,
honestly,
what I would do
you're not going to compete with the NFL.
if I was if I was an owner of an XFL franchise, I would be like, I want to be placed like in Madison.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, well, why Madison? Well, think about it. You have the Bears local, Packers local, Vikings local. St. Louis isn't that, or not St. Louis. Detroit's not that far away. Kansas City's not that far away.
Right.
You go to those franchises and say, hey, if you're going to cut anybody, but you want them to get some playing time, let me take a look at them, and
Well, and
we'll
you
have them
look at
on our
the
roster.
yeah.
And then if you can, know where they are, and you work out a collaboration with those franchises, you're going to have a successful team.
And you find a way, to stash players. Like, I mean, I
Yeah,
think that football has long had that kind of thing. If a guy isn't available for whatever reason, you try to stash him, you try to get him so that you can maybe catch on to him later on.
right.
Well, now you could do that, but you could have them playing and getting experience and being out there, and doing it on a semi-professional level, and then you bring them in. I don't know if this becomes a minor league for the NFL, if that's kind of the direction that we're taking it, but in a way, maybe that's what it would be.
I mean, if you wanted to succeed, that's what you would have to do.
Yeah.
That's what you would have to do. And you could almost, I mean, you could almost do this. You could run it along with the NFL season and maybe only play every other week.
Sure.
Only play 8 games instead of the 17 games. And then
Mm-hmm.
teams could call players up that they have assigned to those teams.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it
Baseball
could be a
does it.
separate league, but I mean, they could talk about it and try to figure this thing out. I just think you can't survive on your own because there's not enough interest in the XFL. There's a reason why it hasn't succeeded 2 times in a row.
Well, you could help yourself by changing your name.
Yeah, yeah,
Because anybody that hears XFL is thinking WWE.
yeah, yeah. And Vince
But they're-
McMahon did a bang up job of making sure that everyone knew he bought it and this is what it was going to be when he took it over. Um, and it didn't work out. But every time that anybody hears it now, that's what they associate it with.
Right.
So yeah,
So you may want to just change the name,
right,
but I doubt it will. Doubt they will.
yeah,
So,
probably not.
that's all I have, Lone Wolf. Do you have anything?
No, I did not have anything else other than that. There's, like you said, generally a quieter week in sports. So
Yeah, we're
yeah,
hitting that lull in sports here. But before we know it, NFL training camps will be here. We'll know the status of the player not to be named.
Right. He who
Um,
shall not be named. Yeah.
yeah, he who should not be named. And move forward there. So, and then next week we have a show, and then our next show will be in Las Vegas.
Yeah. Right on the cusp of the Olympic Games. There's a lot to look forward to being in Vegas for that show.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun show. So thank you everybody for listening to the show. Have a great week, and we will talk to you next time.
All right. Good night.
Maybe I should chill, but I ain't learning how. Hey. Afraid of success, I'm afraid of what happens if I take a rest. I'm afraid that I'll end up where I was before in the hood with no money or food for the rent. I'm scared if I look at the water, I'll drown. So I look at the sky and deny there's a ground. I'm scared of the altitude up in the clouds. I'm scared of the fall, so I don't look down. You, every single one of you. I can't even see you because I don't look down. Don't look down. I can't hide my tears, I dry my eyes and more come out. I can't lie, my fear is suicide, not bank accounts. Keep my chin up, but my head weighs like 1,000,000 pounds. Feels like my neck might break, I hear it crack, ignore the sound. Don't look down. Don't look down. I tried to keep it quiet, silence all my cries for help. As long as I am rising till I'm upside down, I won't look down. This a legendary climb, stand on the edge of the legend, it's very high. Think of the men who are dead cause it got to their head at a cemetery time. I ain't the one who gon' throw it away cause I'm feeling too lonely up here. I ain't the guy who gon' break from the pressure, it's snowy, my pipes are not frozen up here. I don't wanna hear about these YouTube rappers, I am not an